hopefully, a few things. As much as I've used Zoom for a while, massive Zoom webinars I haven't used too much, so hopefully I can keep it on speaker view, and it works quite well for most of the time. But we'll keep chat going. Alrighty, what we'll do is get started. My name's Kurt. I haven't really put my name in the actual advertising too much, so I'm just hosting. I've run a business before it got flooded, and instead of getting up and running, I ended up getting a job at a university, and it's one of the best decisions I made. Instead of going back to private, I still run my own stuff, but not my own facility anymore. I love to see what other people do with their facilities. I love to see how different it is across Australia, and that's why I brought these guys together. So Carl runs Athletes Authority in Sydney, so an S&C facility. Corey has an S&C facility as well in Perth. Matt runs a powerlifting strength facility in Brisbane. David runs, I guess, a multi-facility, has multiple different professionals there. And Zoe runs a health education and
online training, education.
And has just bought a facility at the start of COVID.
5 days before we got shut down.
Happy days.
Yeah.
We've chosen a bitter week in the history of the world to buy. It's all right. We're making it work.
You're doing well so far. So like I said, we'll get cracking. We'll let everyone kind of do their own talking. So rather than me just kind of running through a brief explanation of what they do. So we'll start with Carl up in the top left-hand corner. So who are you, Carl? What is your background as a practitioner as well? And what's your business? You're on mute, Carl. There we go.
There we go. Alrighty. So I run Athletes Authority with my business partner, Lockie Wilmot. He spent the last 10 or so years in pro sport, and I spent the last 10 or so years in private sector. I kind of cut my teeth with some big guys in the industry, with Shannon Ponton before Biggest Loser was a thing, with Dane McDonald as well before Clean Health was a thing. And I've been a PT really my whole life. I did do a uni degree in the meantime, and I was an athlete as well. And at some point I decided I wanted to give the gym ownership a crack. I think we all at some point in time want to give gym ownership a crack, at least a lot of us do. And I walked in with absolutely no idea what I was doing, made a ton of mistakes in the process, almost went bust in the process. I sold a house to make it happen, and $140,000 disappeared almost overnight. And then when essentially it was a bit of a landmark shift, I got a mentor that went pretty sour very quickly, asked for a lot of money, expected a lot of money for his time. And I almost went bust. It was a few days away from calling it in. And thankfully, I was able to turn that around. And now essentially I feel like I run a business that I'm really proud of with Lockie. We get to serve an incredible community of athletes. It wasn't always that way. It did take time to get purely to athlete development. But now we really have an ambition of being able to positively influence every athlete around the world, whether that's via coach education or directly with athletes that we serve. And I'm in a very fortunate position now, even with COVID, that the gym and the business and the model has looked after the athletes, which is obviously first and foremost, but also looked after me and Lockie. We're in a good position, and I'm looking forward today to sharing some of the ideas and some of the systems that has got us to this point.
Oh, good little background. We'll run straight on to Zoe. So we'll get a background of everyone, and then we'll move on to other questions.
My background. I actually only entered the fitness industry or health and fitness industry in 2012. Super inquisitive. Like prior to that, I was in like legal and recruitment and stuff like that. But I'm super, super inquisitive by nature. So when I did my Cert 3 and 4, I kind of felt like I didn't learn anything. Like to me, there was so much more than what was taught that influences someone's results that they get. There's like the whole psychological aspect. There's the whole nutrition aspect. There's like what you do with the 23 hours of the day you're not at the gym. Like that has an effect. So I started kind of digging around. The first course I got directed to, funnily enough, was Biosignature from Polkin Group. Flew to Sydney, did the course, met Luke Lehman, who was the instructor at the time. He's been in the industry over 20 years, mentored under Charles Poliquin, took over his job at Poliquin Group when Charles left. Anyway, really long story short, I'm now married to him. And we started Muscle Nerds 5 years ago in 2015. We saw that there was a really big need for a continuing education in terms of training like a general population person. A lot of the continuing education courses are like how to train your athletes, athletic development and all that sort of stuff. And we saw that, I mean, we traveled the world for 2 years straight just to be together. So we've seen a lot of facilities, into a lot of facilities, seen a lot of coaches. And they would take these athletic development principles and try and bring them home to their general population clients, because, I mean, most people only train a handful of athletes and the rest of the people that pay the bills are gen pop people. And they were just they just weren't working. The programs weren't working. The training methods weren't working because like a mum of 4 that's 40-year-old and works a full-time job can't recover the same as an athlete. So long story short, we started Muscle Nerds, really big, heavy education focus on training general population with a really big focus on teaching the stress physiology, and coined the term lease mode, which basically, I'll get into that later. And yeah, like Kurt mentioned at the start, we purchased a gym 5 days before COVID hit. So we've done it a bit backwards. Most people buy the gym, do in-person training, and then want to move into online. We started online. Now we want to move into in-person. So that's us in a nutshell.
Thanks, Zoe. We'll keep moving along my screen here. On to David.
Sure, thanks, Kurt. I'm originally from Canberra, so I spent a bit of time at the Institute of Sport there. I then moved to London, where I spent 4 seasons working in professional rugby. So I'm an exercise scientist or strength conditioner by trade. But I spent 6 years at a private practice facility called Pure Sports Medicine, and I was the director of performance there for 5 years. It was 4 sites across London. I think it's the largest private sports medicine company in the UK. I moved back to Australia in 2012 and moved straight to Melbourne, and saw there was a fairly big hole with regards to disciplines working together. Everyone was in silos. There's plenty of PT studios. There was plenty of physio clinics, but certainly saw a gap with the communication and different industries, different practitioners working together. So a former client of mine and myself then set up Absolute Health Performance, which is we're 4 years in now. We've got 2 facilities and soon to open our 3rd. It's a sports medicine centre. We have sports physicians, physio, osteo, dietetics, exercise physiology, exercise science, soft tissue therapy, and mainly in person. Obviously, we're doing a lot of online stuff. We do a lot of sort of corporate seminars around activity and managing mental health and cognitive outcomes through movement. Yeah, slowly getting used to this new world of having to spend a lot more time on a chair as opposed to on a gym floor.
Thanks for the summary. Sounds like a good journey. Next up, Corey.
Yeah, cheers, guys. I'll be trying brief, but PT 2007, industry for about 3 years working as that. Did part of my degree, actually enrolled in uni due to a serious ankle injury, which kept me on crutches for nearly 12, 13 months. So activity and playing sport wasn't an option. So enrolled in uni, did my sports science degree. I did part of that in Canada at the Canadian Sports Performance Centre with Matt Jordan. And that was probably my first exposure to Olympic athletes and elite sport. And then that for me was where I decided to become a strength coach. Came back, did my master's degree in strength conditioning. I had my own sort of private facility working with probably 50-50 athletes and Gen Pop. And through that time, I was obviously doing the master's, volunteering at Waste over here, and obviously with the Freo Dockers for a little bit. And then got my first sort of paid gig at West Perth Footy Club over here in the Waffle as a assistant to the league. And then the year after was Colts S&C. And just noticed a massive gap between like Waffle level footy and AFL to grassroots. If you're a waste level athlete or a national level athlete, you go to those facilities. But if you're not at that level, where do you go? And I had a gym at West Perth that was, 50 square meters with 100 athletes. So I'm like, this doesn't really work. So I decided to create my own job. This comes back to what we're sort of talking about today, is that top 1% get to AFL. I decided to build my own facility and then get people to come to us. And 5 years on, we're at a point now where we have a lot of contracts with West Perth. We work with the Australian Federal Police. A lot of amateur footy clubs, pro golfers, pro triathletes. So we're working with a lot of, now it's probably like 80% athlete, 20% gen pop. So obviously early on you rely on the gen pop for the business to grow. And similar to you, Zoe, I told my current lease agent that I'm leaving the facility. I just signed a 5-year lease at my next facility and got my business loan from the bank. And then a week and a half later, COVID hit, and I was just like, all right, if this wasn't in the mission statement, and this wasn't in the business, we're just, as any business owner would know, the biggest thing you need is perseverance above all else, and passion for what you do. So we're looking forward to the next challenge of the new facilities actually in the process of getting built as we speak. So it's been a long journey, and our main program is youth athletic development, just trying to get them ready for elite sport. So
Nice. It's good to see everyone's pretty much a journeyman here so far. And last one here, Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. I think similarly to everyone else here, I'm pretty much a coach who specializes in optimizing human performance, who just so happens to own a gym. My background in the industry includes 8 years of education. I studied both exercise and nutrition sciences, completed a diploma, a few other elective studies. I've been coaching since pretty much 2009. And in that time, I've worked with a whole host of different athletes and clientele. Predominantly, there have been bodybuilders and powerlifters and just people that need help with composition. And I think that just eventually has led to where I am today. So from my gym's perspective, we're a strength facility that specializes in powerlifting. In terms of just the size, we're probably the biggest facility that runs in Queensland. And, excuse me, we're probably the biggest powerlifting gym in Brisbane. What our main part we do with the gym is we run powerlifting competitions. And so over the whole span of the year, our facility, so we run powerlifting competitions over the whole span of the year. So because of that, I think our facility helps all the smaller gyms around our Brisbane region operate and run. So that from the butterfly effect, they probably exist too. And because of that, I think our facility helps coaches mainly in experience with specificity of powerlifting keep their roles as well.
Nice. It's nice and succinct. So it is good to have the background of everyone here, because they're all in slightly different areas, but the same area overall. I guess we've kind of explained a little bit about what or why we got into the industry, but what is your main driver? And again, we'll start in order again. What is your main driver or your main motivation of why you wanted to get that facility running? And has that changed at all over time? I'll start with Vital.
Well, for me, I was the failed athlete about thrice times through. And I feel like that's probably a bit of a common thread between a lot of strength coaches, facility owners who have found themselves wanting to work with athletes. I was first a failed baseballer. I did play for New South Wales, and interesting that Zoe mentioned the psychological aspect. I suffered from severe competition anxiety that happened after one terrible game against the Japanese team. I was the lead-out pitcher of playing for New South Wales, and had a terrible run. Got pulled off on the opening. Probably only pitched about 30 balls, and there was already 5-0 against me, and I got pulled, which was a good decision because I was having a terrible game. But from that point onwards, I essentially developed severe competition anxiety, which essentially meant I was great in practice. I had appeared to have recovered. In practice, I was still pitching well. And then every single time I'd on the mound and lead out in big games, I'd fall apart. So that was kind of as a youth athlete. I then cycled quite competitively, kind of racing at an NRS standard during uni, and essentially had the exact same issue kind of pop up. I was a machine in training. I had all the KOMs and I was the winner on Strava, but I couldn't actually win races because I would buckle under the pressure. So I had this common thread, I guess, throughout my journey as a failed athlete, that when I had developed a skill set of being able to coach, I really wanted to make an impact in that realm. So I fell into athlete development. As I said, I had no idea what I was doing when I opened the gym, but I knew I wanted to make some kind of impact there. And thankfully, meeting Lockie, I was able to essentially piggyback off his reputation in pro sport and my passion for actually making an impact in this area and giving people the skill set to help deal with competition and actually win, because I think that's what we compete for. We don't compete to lose, that's for sure. So I wanted to kind of create systems and create a community and create a culture and create ideas that helped facilitate that. So now, we try and maximize the physical ability of an athlete and also create systems to help maximize their mental ability and how they turn up there. And yes, the answer is yeah, it has changed. As a PT early on, I just had that very generic idea of I want to help people. I like to help people. That service-based motivation. And as that developed, I realized that I really wanted to make an impact with athletes. And now, even in my current situation, I really now want to make an impact with coaches. I've seen a lot of PTs, coaches, gym owners bite the dust, as I nearly did. And now I really want to be able to make an impact and hopefully create some incredible shifts in their thinking that allow them to make a big impact in their business and who they reach. Because as I mentioned at the start, if we want to change every athlete's life around the world, we can't do that just by communicating to the athletes. We need to influence coaches as well. So that's kind of the mission as it is now and why we do what we do.
Nice. And I think the one thing that I found when meeting most, not just facility owners, but coaches, is nearly everyone starts out with a Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. And sometimes we get this perception that personal trainers aren't great per se, but we all generally start out in the same area. Some of us go straight to uni, but I know I started with Cert 3 and 4. By the sounds, did you start the same as well, Carl? So 3 and 4?
Yeah, I think probably our generation, we look a bit older, like 28s. Sorry, you still look 19. You look incredible.
Late 30s.
Yeah.
Looking.
So I think we're a bit older.
Sorry to interrupt. I think it also gives us a bit of credit to be able to bag out personal trainers to some degree. Like because I'd been mine before, I think the industry gets a little bit sort of confused with what personal trainers should be doing. And this is one of my sort of pet hates, is that a personal trainer should look after general health, the well-being of normal people. As soon as it comes into athletic development, they need to go, okay, this is now out of my jurisdiction. This needs to go on to a performance coach. And having been a personal trainer for 4 or 5 years prior, and thinking I was a performance coach, that's where the issues lie for me. They need to help the gen pop, and then there's a lot of people that need help in gen pop. So there's a massive market for those guys. I think once they get them to a point of normal quality of life and they want to go into maybe some sports development or athletic development, that's when they sort of need a handball. Like we handball to physios and chiros and nutritionists. It's the same aspect for me, I think.
I would even argue that personal trainers don't even know how to fucking. Are we allowed to
go for your life.
We are. We're doing it, Zoe.
I would argue that like a lot of them can't even deal with the gym pop person properly, let alone moving into athletic people. And
Yeah.
that's what we found, and that's like why we moved into it as well, is just because you have all these, I feel like this industry is just full of all these facts floating around in the air, right? Like how to get strong, like 565, how to do hypertrophy, this, just don't eat carbs, like just bullshit stuff that no one ever understands the overarching premise behind it, or actually how the body works. And so they go to the gym pop people and they're like, oh, you're not getting results, you need to like train harder and eat less. Or you're still not getting results, you either lie to me, or you need to train even harder, add an extra hour of cardio, and then you need to cut even less food. And it's like they don't understand there's always a point of diminishing returns. And the power that personal trainers have over their clients is insane. It's like we have clients come to us who one of their trainers 10 years ago got into their head that carbohydrates make them fat, and they haven't fucking touched one in 10 years. Like that's the power we have over people. And we don't I don't think we appreciate that, and we don't understand what we do and we say has it can affect someone so drastically. So yes, personal training can improve someone's life drastically if done right, but it also has the power to really fuck someone up if not done right. And so that's where we came along. And
this is a perfect segue into why you got into it, Zoe. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I just kind of jumped in there. But yeah, that's why we got into it. It's because people just they don't understand what they're getting their clients to do, like what effect that actually has on the client outside. That, like they mentioned, that 23 hours outside of the gym that they're not with you. And we just want to give them a base level of knowledge so they can become critical thinkers, and they can pick the bullshit, and they can say, well, that's not right because the body doesn't actually work like that, or that doesn't sound like that should be something that makes sense, or whatever. And it's just so they understand the points of diminishing return. Like just because something's good, it doesn't mean more is better. And that's what this industry does. It's just like more, like beast mode, sleep when you're dead. Like, fuck off with that shit. That doesn't work. Maybe if you're like a 20-year-old male, but like when you're dealing with like a 35-year-old mum or a 50-year-old executive, do you know what I mean? Like there's so much more that you now have to consider when you write their training. So I would argue, yes, like personal trainers should only deal with Gen Pop, but even some of them shouldn't even deal with Gen Pop. Like they should be paying people to train them, like not the other way around.
And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a reason why or motivation behind why you kind of started a little bit, Zoe.
Very much motivation, and it hasn't changed. It's still it's getting worse, especially with social media. Don't even start on that. But I'm gonna mute myself, let someone else talk.
And I will move on to David in a second. But as we mentioned, some personal trainers are great. And some aren't so much. So
absolutely, there's great ones out there, 100%. But I think as a whole, like the barrier to entry is so low. Like the industry it's saturated, but it's not competitive. It really doesn't take much to be. You just have to care, and all of a sudden you're in the top 1% of personal trainers. But anyway, I'll carry on.
We'll move on to David. Your motivation behind it?
It wasn't motivated by influencers or personal trainers because they're all very good ones, and ultimately I think most people get in it to try to help people, so I don't think anyone should be too harsh on them. They just do go outside of their scope, but maybe they just don't know their scope, that's all. There's certainly shit strength and conditioning coaches and exercise scientists and exercise physiologists. So I don't think we should pigeonhole any one industry in any way. So two reasons. One was obviously as I discussed earlier, it's the different disciplines working in silos, and poor communication between maybe their personal trainer or their strength coach outside of someone who was working within elite sport. General probably didn't really get the opportunity where they'd see their physio actually physically talking to their dietitian and speaking with their coach and having that case management scenario. So a big part of it was to improve the services that general population would reach. And so our population demographic is probably more 25 plus, and we tend to deal a lot with injury managements and stress and people with much more going on with their lives than just a set focus of a particular sport. But the second part was as a professional, like working in elite sports or working in a gym. I remember one time when I started out as a PT, someone asked me, what am I going to do when I get a real job? And I took great offense to that. It was like, what makes me not wearing a suit any less of a real job? So it was also to create a place where coaches didn't have to chase 5 years of volunteer roles and train 3 hours out into the country to work for free or maybe petrol money by the second season. To not have to work in a gym where you just are bunched up with, you've done a lot of additional study and qualifications and experience, but you're bunched into being a personal trainer. A place where you can get an employee role where you can grow in a career and you can get a bank loan and you can actually have some form of professional development as opposed to the 2 or 3 year contract here and there in elite sport or being lost in the mess that is the Globo gyms.
Nice. It's good motivation, and I like what you said in regards to the fact someone asked, "What are you going to do when you get a real job?" So it's something that we may have all faced at some point, because I know when I first opened my facility, I'd been in the industry for quite some time. I'd worked with Olympic athletes, worked at World Cup, and all that kind of stuff. And my uncle said, "Good to see you've finally done something with your life." I was like, "Whoa."
They're jealous. They're jealous because we get to wear shorts to work. That's it.
I like it. Moving on, Corey, what's your driving force? You explained a little bit beforehand, but yeah.
Yeah, so obviously it was initially to help people, and that, as David said, like everyone gets in this industry, I think, to help people. Like, I'm a failed athlete myself. I think the biggest driver for me was when I was going through like national level footy at like Aussie Rules. At 15, back in those days, there was nowhere to go for performance. It was me YouTubing what I could do to get stronger and faster, and everything I did was completely wrong. Like, everything I did was wrong. So for me, as I became educated, if I had the knowledge I have now, back when I was 13 or 14, it could be a different story. And I guess all we're trying to have is like a holistic approach to performance. Like it goes back to that. Sleep, nutrition, hydration, strength training, recovery, all those things. Like in the new facility, that's what we want it to be a place where people can come for like a one-stop shop. Like, you get your massage, you get your nutrition, you get your recovery, similar to Athletes Authority. Like, they've got a very similar model to what we're sort of aiming for as well. But I guess the biggest moment for me was being at semi-professional level, where these guys, are athletes and they can't touch their toes, they can't run, they can't jump, they got no strength. And they're like a year away from playing senior footy. For me, I want to get them at 10 and then 10 years old. And if I get them then, they're a piece of clay. And I can just mold them into whatever I want to mold them into. And we've got 13-year-olds who move better than all my elite guys in terms of their efficiency and what they can actually do, because they've been trained right from the start. And so for me, it's about that long-term development pathway. And yeah, just for me, that overall approach of what performance is, getting to sleep earlier, getting phones out of your rooms, reading, getting smarter. All that is performance based, because it makes you perform better. So we want to make sure we have a facility where people can come and tap into all those particular resources. And the driving force is just to make these youth guys better. So when they get to 18, 19, they're ready to go. They're not walking into an AFL system at 18 and starting from that point, because that to me is it's limiting them in terms of their performance.
Nice. Matt?
Yeah, cool. And I thought I'd just add my 2 cents initially on what a personal trainer's role is too, because
Go for it.
there's a big problem with differentiating a personal trainer's role and between other allied health professionals. And from my perspective, a personal trainer's role is someone who is a source of motivation for others. That's kind of almost simply it. Whereas a coach, on the other hand, has specification and deliberation behind what they do. So determining just a personal trainer between a coach, I think those two type of people are very different things. What my source of motivation is, initially, I was super obsessed about being super jacked and big. So I'm just a bit of a musclehead, really. I've been training for 15 years now. And as everyone else here would probably know, because I've been here for quite a long time, there wasn't that much information out there back then of how to get big, how to get strong, how to be fast, how to be the best you possibly could be. So I spent a lot of time studying, collaborating. And progressively, I just got better and better at what I was doing. From there, people realized that I knew what I was talking about. So I started getting clients and I started doing lots of programs, whether they were bodybuilding programs, powerlifting programs, recon programs, like I said before. And that kind of just built my business. It almost happened a little bit by default. But my main motivation was I was super obsessed with big muscly dudes. And that's where I am today.
Nice. And I think at the moment there's so many even memes going around on the internet about women think men are getting jacked for them and men are really getting jacked to impress other men. Just to train with their bros.
Let's say you're a big dude and you're walking through the beach. No girls turn their head and look at you, but every guy does. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to, unfortunately.
No, it's good to hear the backgrounds of everyone and see what their motivation is, and that's why I kind of wanted to get a background before we kind of crack into the real business stuff and nut out really kind of what your facility does and kind of lessons we can learn from it. So we have a background of everyone. Straight into a business question. What business model do you basically run at your facility? Has it changed over time as well? So I know Carl mentioned you obviously changed over time as well, but what business model do you run?
Well, look, I think if a business model didn't change for most people in this industry frequently, then I think you're probably doing something wrong. Because I think that the greatest source of learning is listening to your customers, and your customers are going to constantly tell you what you need. And those needs will change and adapt. And as you get more clear on what they need and how you solve that problem, your solution should change. And when your solution changes, your model should change. So we have gone through many iterations, hundreds of iterations of what we do. But now we're essentially set on delivering on the promise that we create and transform athletes into podium finishers and the team MVP. If you were to kind of surmise our promise in a nutshell, that's what we do. And we do that through essentially three mechanisms: bulletproofing their body, creating a powerful physique, and then kind of developing the confidence that they need to win. And so we do that by essentially what was being alluded to, providing a complete system for sports performance. That includes psychological support, it includes recovery support, it includes optimizing strength training and optimizing speed mechanics and all that jazz. And how we deliver on that is by providing essentially semi-private coaching that delivers on the strength training and the speed mechanics and all that jazz, and have some systems that prop that up. So we have recovery systems, we have Normatex and all that stuff upstairs in our recovery area. We have mental skills training that bolsters their mental side. And we've tried to round out our coaching product to deal with all the most common obstacles for the amateur and the emerging athlete. So in terms of the finances of it, we essentially need to, as most gyms need to, we have a minimum threshold of athletes that makes us profitable. At the moment, that sits anywhere between about that 50 or 60 as a general rule of thumb for most smaller gym operations, around that 300, 400 square meters. If you are stupid enough to run it in Sydney like we did, that thankfully I get to mentor a whole bunch of coaches do the same. Oh yeah, am I back?
You're back, yeah.
Hello, you got me?
Yeah,
sweet. Where did that cut out, Kurt?
Pretty much just after you said silly enough to set up in Sydney like we did.
Oh, yes. Yes. So, we pay a ridiculous and exorbitant amount of rent. But thankfully the coaches that I mentor, they're looking in Adelaide, or they're looking in Perth, or they're looking even in Melbourne or the Gold Coast, where things are a bit more viable to run a small group model. And essentially the athletes will pay $107 a week. I'll just finish this up. They sign up for a minimum of a year. They get then the opportunity to sign up for another year after that. And we provide essentially about 16 sessions a week on our timetable, which are distributed between the strength and power stuff in the gym and the field work outside, including rehab. And we also obviously have physiotherapy built into our business model, which is a bit novel, and happy to chat about that further if you think it's appropriate to. We did cop a little bit of flack for running essentially a no gaps physiotherapy solution for in-house athletes. Some physios loved it, some physios hated it, but it works for us because it does minimize costs and extra costs for our athletes who are faced with dealing with some type of injury. And that's really the business model in a nutshell. Now, obviously, we can go into specifics about offers and marketing and sales strategies and service delivery and financial management, but I'm sure you guys don't want to hear about all that.
Exactly. That's pretty much what we're kind of aiming for, just in a nutshell, so people get an idea of how you run, and then they can kind of ask questions if need be. So.
Sure. Then what I might add to that
okay.
quickly, Kurt, is go to our website. Then you're going to get a really good idea of how we run our business by just spending some time on someone's website and seeing how they set up their landing pages and their web pages and their offerings and how they communicate their value and their value proposition and what their promise is. Go to a website and you should find a fair bit of that out.
Awesome. On to Zoe.
When we started Muscle Nerds, like I mentioned, in 2015, and we made an announcement that we were starting Muscle Nerds and we were taking on online clients. And from that point on, we had no plan, no structure, no systems, no processes. We just said, hey, look, we're going to start doing online training. And from the minute we made that announcement, we were almost inundated with people that were requesting services. So for the first 2 to 2.5 years, we were very, very reactive. We were not proactive in anything that we did. We would have someone contact us saying, hey, look, can you come to Canada and teach a course so we're like, yep, sweet. So we'd go to Canada, and then we'd say, someone wanted us to go to Kuwait, went to Kuwait, we would Dubai while we were there. And so we just literally, if someone asked for something, we would give it. And it got to the point where that is not a viable way to run a business when you have no say in what it is that you're delivering. But it got us off the ground to a good start. It got us kind of in the groove and learning what not to do. It's only been in the last couple of years that we've actually had the ability to sit down once first we got a home. Like, we settled in Australia, which was good, but we were homeless for 2 years just traveling. So starting a business and traveling was, again, not something I'd recommend. And so, yeah, it's only been in the last couple of years that we've sat down and we said, okay, what do we want to deliver? How do we want to deliver it? What services do we want to offer? What do we not want to do anymore? And so Luke got to the point where, I mean, he's, like I mentioned, he's been in the industry for over 2 decades. So he's gotten to the point where he's like, I don't want to train people anymore. I just want to do education. So we hired 2 coaches. We do online training. We do everything. It's fully customized. We don't do any templated stuff or generic things. So we only really deal with people who are serious about investing their time, money, and energy into applying what it is that they're paying for. And then we have the education side of the business, where we have online courses. We have an online program design course. We do normally do in-person courses for nutrition courses, but obviously that's kind of on hold with COVID. And then we bought the gym. I have no idea how we're going to run that. I have no idea what business system or we're going to do. I have no idea. We'll figure that out. I think our priority with that is, once we get open, it's a 24/7 gym. So we're just going to get members up to where it covers the cost, and then we'll figure out how we're going to implement personal training sessions and classes and all that sort of stuff. And then we also just have a small manual therapy studio in Bullumba in Brisbane, where we do like FST, neurostim, massage, all that sort of stuff as well. So we're predominantly online. We started online. We were online for the first 4 years. In the last year, we started trying to get some bases in person and do that more in-person services. So that's us in a really broad nutshell. I don't know if anybody wants to know any specifics on the online training side of stuff, but we've been doing it. Luke's been doing it for over a decade, so we're pretty well versed in it.
Very nice. It's interesting to hear how it may change online to in person as well.
I don't even know where to start with that. I'm just going to wing that one. It's going to be complete. I'm not disillusioned to the fact that it's what works online probably isn't what's going to work in person. But we'll figure it out. Figured it out before, we'll figure it out again.
It's something I'm going to delve into soon, actually, in regards to business plans. So,
amazing.
David, I've been interested to hear myself about how your business model may work, considering you've got multiple different practitioners at your facility.
Yeah, so as I said, it is a multidisciplinary. I think the model has evolved, but there was sort of years of research actually before we even opened in it. So the model hasn't needed to change dramatically. Certainly there needs to be evolutions to see where the flaws are, see where the errors are, critically analyze what you're doing to make sure you're progressing and being successful both in the delivery for your clients and what the business is doing itself. But we're primarily, it's a private facility. There's no membership. It's one-on-one appointments with your coach, with your exercise physiologists, massage, whatever it is, and same with physio, osteo, etc. We do run some small group classes, but they're sort of a small element to what we do. So yeah, it's where all three facilities have a 200 square meter gym training floor with clinical rooms surrounding it. The coaches, the physios, the sports physicians all interact on a daily basis, whether it be for the team professional development that we do quite regularly, or just to engage with a client. It's always handy to pull the sports doc out when you've got a client that's had an issue, or they're seeing the physio and you can actually just go knock on the door and go, "Hey Joel, what's going on with this guy? Why is his knee hurting? And what do you think of this next step of his program or this progression to his sprint work?" So it allows a better service for the clients, and it allows for a constant learning environment for a practitioner.
Nice. And just a quick question on that one. Considering it is multidisciplinary, are those in your facility, are they employed by you, or are they subcontracting space?
No, we don't subcontract any space. So majority of people are employees. We do have people that come on as what the legal term is room renters, where they're commission based or whatever it might be. And the aim, as I said originally, to set it up is to create a platform where people can progress to employee roles, where they can have career development, security, and those sorts of things within their lives, as well as people working in the sports medicine or performance field.
Awesome. Corey.
Yeah, so look, I think like most people, I was just, good at what I did. And then going from a sole trader to a company, my business plan was it's going to work. Apparently the banks don't like hearing that. So the banks want you to put together like an actual business plan. And I actually had two business partners who I asked to join me on this sort of venture. It was sort of my idea, and I had a couple of people join me. We'll talk about business partners a little bit later, but I don't recommend them. But yeah, we'll go down that track later. But in terms of model, like my thing was people shouldn't train by themselves because they don't know what they're doing. So when we open the doors, I strictly wanted people to train under supervision at all times, and with a strength coach, with an EP, so that they were getting what they needed, and people not coming in just sort of doing their own thing. And then as the facility grew, I was realizing that, okay, we were sort of limiting ourselves with our model, not allowing people to come into the facility and train when they wanted to. So now we look at our business as a continuum, and it's like a 4-stage continuum essentially. So we work with clinical, we work with like one-on-one, obviously then we work in semi-private small training groups, and then we work in like the open membership, which is like the athlete realm. So for me, people move through the continuum based on where they're at. So if if they come in from a clinical standpoint, we might rehab them back into sort of Gen Pop. So they go into a semi-private training, and everyone in our facility has individual programs. So we might have 20 people in here, but everyone's running an individual program for what they need, obviously based off how they were screened and testing and injuries and so forth, which I think we all do anyway. So for me, it's almost like a graduation. So you go from clinical to one-on-one. Once the coach is satisfied with your one-on-one work and you can be less supervised, you go into semi-private. Once you've been in semi-private for a year or two, whatever it may be, then you would move into like an open membership where you don't need much supervision now. We can just program for you externally, and then we would then come out and help you lift. If it was a technical lift, we would come out and help you. So, and then the model with like the business side of things, like the guys, athletes story mentioned, they were sort of 50 athletes. Look rough, it's pretty similar. So we have 60, 70 athletes as our, like once we're sort of tipping that point with our youth athletes, we go into the profit. Now it's taken, 4 years of of grinding to get to that point. And it's only been the last year and a half of business that we've got to the point where we're comfortable. And I've done a fair bit of reading. Like I said, I wasn't a business person when I started this. You learn this as you go. And I've read a million books about business, and they all pretty much say the same thing. If you want to know how to run a company and create your own company. That's the best way to learn. And the business plan, since writing it, I have never looked at it since. And all it is just because business is so fluid that it's ever evolving, like David said and the other guys have said. Like, we have an overall philosophy of what we do. And that philosophy is just basically education, movement, health, all the things that you guys preach as well. So, and then obviously having the university affiliates with our internship programs, and then obviously the internship programs with America. I think we're the only facility in WA that I know of that does internships with American interns. So we fly them over a couple of times a year as well. And our affiliate universities, if anyone wants to hire staff and who wants to have their own facility, the best job interview you can ever have is having an intern for 6 months to 9 months. And at the end of that 6 to 9 months, they're obviously doing their hours for free through university as development. All of our staff have come through that program. We've only had one staff member come on from like an outside recommendation. So that model in terms of employees and building a team culture seems to work very well.
Nice. It's I like the progressive model. So
yeah,
it's a really neat I guess style of training.
Yep.
Matt.
Yeah, look, I think my business model, I could be talking quite a while on what my objectives are and everything we do to be where we are. But to summarize it really quickly, we have three main sources of income. One's our coaches, who's our subcontractors. So we have strength coaches here, we have massage therapists, soon to be dietitians and physiotherapists. So as a whole, we're essentially just a go-to performance training center. We have our memberships. So roughly right now we have around 120 members. For us to break profit, realistically, we need X amount of coaches, X amount of members, and we're basically just on that line right now. So I think for this facility to be where I deem it needs to be, we probably need to have around 200 members. So we've got about 80 to go. And then we essentially just have powerlifting competitions. There are three main sources, and then we have little things like merchandise and whatnot as well. But from the incomes perspective, we have three main avenues. From the business models perspective, that could be a lot of explaining to do. I don't know if that's what you want to hear or.
No, that's exactly it. Like trying to just give us a nice overview of, I guess, where your income comes from. So in regards to the memberships, are they open memberships, or how do they operate exactly?
We have a few different membership options. One is just a no contract. So obviously that's going to have a different fee. We got no cancellation, no sign-up fees, but they just pay a higher rate, which is about $9 extra per week. And then we have a 12-month contract, which has cancellation fees and from there. So basically two types of membership contracts, and that's it.
Yeah, nice. And with those members, is it just like, say, a Fitness First where they can come in and do their own program, or does everyone get a program?
When I first taken over this facility, we were doing membership programs. The issue is, and I'm really pedantic when I do programs for my clients, is if you have a generic template, it's a generic template for your members. And I am super over obsessive about all my members being the best they possibly can be. And so if you want to be the best you possibly can be, don't use a generic template, find a coach, get coaching, be the best you can be via that avenue. So I really tried pushing that. What I'm actually doing right now in our COVID downtime is I'm building templates. So I'll probably offer like 6 to 8 different templates. And I'll just say to our members, and it'll be at an extra fee. So we'll have three membership options, and one will be with programming. But essentially I'll just be like, look, this is a generic program. This will be a little bit customized to you, but I still recommend coaching. So yeah.
Nice. It keeps it nice and simple in that case.
Yeah, super simple.
It's interesting to see all the different business models, how they may run. In regards to that, and we're starting to touch on it briefly as well, so I'll kind of lead on with that next question. Did you have a business plan to begin with? If you did you look at it again? I think Corey could answer that already, or has answered that already. Or do you have some sort of plan that you actually do follow? So we're going to kick off in reverse this time, just to mix it up a little bit. Start with Matt.
Yeah, cool. So from the gym's perspective, yes, we've had a plan. I'd like to keep in mind for the viewers and everyone here right now, I've owned this facility for 1 year. This company's existed for 8 years. So I've taken over our company 1 year ago and bought it. So it's pre-existing. So we haven't managed to get 120 members in this time and whatnot. Everything I've done over the last 12 months is remodeling a little bit the way that the facility was, revamping it, reconditioning it. I've put in well over $100,000 to the facility right now. And now we're just leading into what our next set of marketing campaigns and everything will be. So if we're going to talk about, has the model changed, have things changed? I'm kind of more of a newbie to the company side of things, but things are just changing right now. Yes. I really do feel like I'm more conditioned on talking about coaching because I do a lot of mentor coaching. I think that's my expertise. We spoke about this before, but yeah, from the gym's perspective, I'm new in this role.
Nice. I guess before I move on to Corey here, I guess on top of talking about the business plan and has it changed, have you had a single goal? And I know you're new to this, Matt, like you said, in the last year, although you've been in the industry quite a while. In regards to that business plan aspect, have you had the same goal or vision along that way, despite having a business plan or not?
Yeah, I don't think much has changed. So before I taken over this gym, it wasn't just, the gym's for sale, let's go buy it. I spent a year planning. So that was literally a year of planning. And because I've been within this facility for 5 years, I've been around for obviously 10, 15 years doing this. I had a very clear vision of what needed to change and what I would change and what I would be doing. And as I said, like I was already at this facility for 5 years working here. So I kind of knew what was going to happen and I knew how things would pan out. So no, not much has changed from my original plans.
Oh, all good. Corey.
Yeah, yes, look, as I said, business plan, didn't have one initially. The bank wanted one, so we wrote one, which we got through the government and sort of like, it was like a template sort of form. But look, our model was purely youth athlete development. That's what I started. Started because of youth development, and getting guys in, teaching from a young age what they can and can't do. And look, we started with 3 classes in 2015. And like we're talking like 3 or 4 guys in the class, to the point now we have 10 classes a week, most of them are fully capped out at sort of 15 athletes. If we have 15 athletes in a session, we got, two paid coaches and generally an intern as well, so sort of 1 to 5 ratio. But yeah, I get the model definitely evolved. Like the fact that I didn't want to have anyone in the gym as an open member because I didn't trust them, was a massive downfall from a business plan. Like you need to fill the facility to its capacity as much as possible. And that is revenue that you get for not doing much. That sounds bad, but these people are still getting screened. They're still getting individual coaching when they're on the floor sometimes. They still get programs uploaded to their phone based on how they move and what their goals are. So that was probably the hardest thing for me. It was an ego thing. It was like, I don't want people in here if they're not being looked after at all times. And I had a few business mentors go, look, Corey, as much as I understand where you're coming from, that is a flawed business model. So that's one of the things I had to sort of let go and learn. But I don't want it to become a commercial facility where you just sort of go in and train and just left to your own devices, and guys are doing bicep curls and squat racks, and they're doing shit they shouldn't be doing. Like, just for me, it was like an OCD control issue, which I've now learned to let go of. So from a young business owner, that was definitely a big hurdle for me to get over. And that was probably the biggest change. And then obviously just running the systems of the classes is what has obviously evolved over time in terms of how we run our classes. Because we coach, so because we educate all our staff on how we want them to run, we have a system, but we're not limiting our coaches to being creative in their own right and their own flair as well. So all our coaches are different in their own right, which I think is great and creates a good atmosphere in the facility. Since writing that business plan, like I said, haven't really looked at it since. It's all here, and we have it down on paper, and I have a budget. So for me, budget's probably one thing I had to learn in business and the company. And I've got a very good accountant who keeps me on my toes with, especially with the new facility being built, like you've got to be very, very careful about budget. And look, when COVID hit, like, so we had the new lease signed, the old one was on its way out and the business loan came through. So that was a brand new thing that we had to deal with. And we're like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And we were lucky that we were in a position of, we had some cash in reserve that we could get through COVID if it was going to last, 6 months. So the model's definitely changed. You definitely need to have a good idea of your business model. But I think, like I said before, the amount of stuff I've read and mentors I've had is just, if you want to have a company and you want it to be successful, surround yourself with those sort of people, but just start a company and you'll learn real fast what needs to happen to make it work.
So pretty much what you're saying is you don't necessarily need a business model, but a finance model.
You need a budget. I don't think you need a business. I don't think you need a business plan. Like, you obviously need an idea, and you need something that's going to be different and separate yourself to some degree. I think the biggest thing you need is just severe perseverance and passion for what you do, and just be relentless in the pursuit of, like, for me, what I've learned, or 5 years is a point in business where you go, all right, now we've sort of made it. And then 10 years is the point where your brand is now big enough that it can just evolve itself. So for me, I'm aiming for that next 5 year block. We've already done 5 years and we've made it through that quite well. For me, it's now the 10-year mark. And once we hit that 10-year mark, the beast is big enough for it to continue to roll over.
Nice. David?
I'm going to sound very conservative compared to everyone else here. So we had a very detailed business plan, financial forecasts for 10 years plus. We had a personnel plan, both with, what the staff numbers look like, but also the profiles, the personality types. We developed client avatars, so we knew exactly what our likely client was going to be, what their needs were, what their pain points were, to then make sure that the model fit the population. Obviously, a big part of that is the location. That will form a lot of what your population will look like. And we do review the business plan relatively, once every couple of months, but not in great detail. But yeah, it's kind of there and it's sitting in the background. There was a lot of research behind the scenes before it. And yeah, you have to have that passion. You have to have the hard work. You have to understand that back-to-back 16-hour days for weeks on end is just kind of the norm to get things off the ground. And until you run a business, you don't truly understand that. But we've been fortunate. We still always want more. If you're happy with everything, you're probably missing stuff that you're not seeing. So it drives you to continue to evolve the model and ask more of yourself and improve staff. But we've up to now, grown to nearly 3 facilities. One will hopefully open a bit later in this year, depending on how COVID and everything goes. We've had 3,500 people come through our doors for up to 37,000 different services over 4 years. So, there's the work that we put in behind the scenes and the year leading up to it has definitely played a role. And I think the most important thing that we did out of that was actually the people modeling, because service delivery, it's about finding the right people. So planning to have what we wanted the personnel to be was probably the most powerful thing we did before opening the doors.
Nice. And that's quite detailed. And I think it's good to see the differences between each facility, because some people will run off a business plan specifically, some people won't. So it gives different, coaches an idea of how they can structure it, and seeing that you can go as detailed as like you are, David, and over, or checking that over every few months, versus some people that just have an idea, but they kind of run with that idea. We'll move on to Zoe. She's spoken a little bit about it already, so this will be interesting.
I'm actually really interested. I'm complete opposite of David, but in saying that, the way we started, we were able to have very minimal overhead. So it was almost like there wasn't a huge risk if we failed, or if we didn't, follow what we planned to do. We could adjust really easily. Like, as we started online, we didn't live anywhere. All we needed was to make enough money to get us to the next country or the next location, or to get a roof to stay somewhere for the night. I'm really interested, David, with all of your planning that you did, how much of it went to plan? Like, are you the type of person that you just made what you planned, you made it happen, or did you have to adjust a fair bit?
You learn from your errors, and I think if you have a plan or something to reflect back on, it's going to allow you to pick up on error in judgment earlier on.
Right.
Every business, no matter how you go, is going to make those errors along the way. But if you've got some structure set up, and you put it in the terms of how you might set someone's strength program up, how are you going to know what element of their program is not working if you haven't set up that detailed plan and not tracking those measures along the way? And it works out the same in business. So we're all going to make the same mistakes. I think it's more about how quickly are you going to be aware that they're happening and what part needs to be adjusted. Is it the tempos? Is it the reps? Is it the sets? Is it the staffing personnel? Is it the HR? Is it the social media side of things? So I think by having a detailed plan in advance just allowed a quicker reflection and then a quicker reaction. But it's also part personality. Like, I was that annoying kid that completed their homework first day you were given it. I'm OCD. I can't leave a dish in the sink. A dumbbell cannot be left out of place. So it's probably also comes down to the personality type of myself that
100%.
kind of went that way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can't manage what you don't measure, right? But yeah, we had zero business plan. Like I said, we made an announcement one day, like, all right, we're starting to take online clients. We're calling ourselves Muscle Nerds. We didn't have anything set up. We just doggy paddled and kept our head afloat for 2.5 years. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but I also think that our naivety is probably what allowed us to keep going and get to where we are. I think if I had known how much there is to it, I probably would have been like, I would have paralyzed. I wouldn't even have taken that first step because it's very overwhelming. But like I said, we had really minimal overheads. So we increased our overheads when we were able to. So we did it that way, as opposed to having a plan that we needed X amount of clients to meet, X amount of overheads. We kind of did it, I wouldn't say opposite, but yeah, we basically, long story short, we had no plan. We had no business plan. I wouldn't even know how to write a business plan. But I am all over finances. So it's kind of like, I know what we need. I know what our expenses are. I know what we need to bring in, and I know what services, how many of each service we need to get to meet that finance. So I guess you could consider that a business plan, but not in the sense, like, nowhere near as detailed as David's. I'm super impressed by that. But like, I wouldn't even, like I said, I've got zero experience. Did you have a business mentor? How did you learn how to do it?
So in Melbourne, I don't know whether it's state by state, but there's actually small business institutes that you can go and get up to 4 or 5 sessions free with people who've been successful in different elements.
Amazing.
I'm still really close, and it's another question we'll get to later, is do you have a business mentor? And the previous CEO of the sports medicine company in the UK is a very good friend of mine. So I still speak very regularly with him. And unlike, I can't remember who it was, someone says that to not have a business partner. I disagree entirely. I think you need to know your weaknesses and have someone there that can fill those gaps. And so I've got been very lucky. My former client, the business partner, spent his life in the financial district. So he understood all the financial modeling side of things. So we had people that had different skill sets that were able to work with each other.
I agree with you, David, and I couldn't do it on my own. Luke couldn't do it on his own. Like, we just make the perfect team. But I dare say, if we hadn't have got so lucky and we had a business partner that completely fucked us over, we'd probably agree with Corey.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. It all depends on the personal experiences you've had, of course.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying business partners they're bad by any means. Like, for me, like David's, you need to add someone to your business who adds the strength element that you like. He added finance. If I had a finance business partner, that would have made my life a lot easier. So we saturate ourselves with everyone had pretty much the same specialty. And it wasn't their baby to them. It wasn't their passion. It wasn't their drive. So when the 12 to 15, 16-hour days come, and then doing 5-hour days and 6-hour days, you're looking at them going, well, you're getting the same amount as me, and you're working a third of what I'm working. What's going on here? And then when passion starts to fall away for them and you're the one driving everything. So I had a tough experience and I learned some things. One thing in business you should never do is to show your emotions and show your cards if you're in business and like the owners. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and one thing I've learned to do in business is reserve my judgment early on. I told one of my business partners straight to his face, I said, mate, you are fucking out of this business if it's the last thing I do. And that ended with like a year of, lawyers and trying to get them out. And this, it was just an absolute nightmare. So definitely be, I guess, how you go about it is obviously very important. But business partners can add a lot to it. In my experience, it took a lot of energy away from me in the business. And I think my motto now is just find really good employees, which we have, who are very good at their job. And then if you want to reward them in other ways, then you can. So
I'm like you. I'm still learning where to reserve that, like play your cards close to your chest. I'm too transparent, and it's proven a few times now to have shot me in the foot about it. But it's one of the many levels of business ownership, right?
Before we jump in with Kyle, it's one of those things where I kind of heeded some advice regarding that, tried to be less transparent, not necessarily less transparent, but keeping cards close to the chest. And I found it restricted and limited my interaction with people. And as soon as I try to open that up again, even though I'm very transparent and very brutal nowadays, I tend to attract the right people that I want to work with now. And generally, saying people tend to enjoy that honesty. It just depends on what situation you're in. Like, obviously, it's a tough situation Corey went through as well, and I've been through some stuff like that too. And it doesn't always go well, but it works out better in the long run, I believe. So, but we'll move on to Carl. You're on mute, buddy.
So I've been sitting here patiently listening to this whole conversation, and I think the mistake all of us have made is we never defined what a business plan was. So I think we've been at crossroads and butting heads, because if we wanted to find a business plan do you have a very clear offering where you understand your messaging, understand your market, and understand the media you're going to use? Do you have a clear sales process? Do you have a clear service delivery mechanism? Do you know what your customer experience is going to look like? Do you know about your financial metrics and how you're going to make money? Is it going to be profitable? If they're the rules that essentially underpin a business plan, then you'd be a fucking fool not to have that. You'd be a moron to not have that. And I feel like even some of us probably did have that, but maybe didn't fit the nice architecture of a business plan. So we said we didn't have it. So I feel like I'm going to kind of err on to support David on that, in the sense that you absolutely should know those 5 key elements of your business. You need to know exactly what your offering is, exactly what your marketing strategy is, exactly how you're going to convert leads into sales, exactly what your customer experience is going to look like so you can deliver on your promise, and exactly how you're going to make fucking money. And if you don't, well, then you will soon learn, because you will run out of money. You won't have a marketing plan, and you will be sitting where I was with $2,000 left in my bank account when I had $140,000. But what the fuck do I do now? So I know that is a bit full on, but I think that's the answer. You do need to know. All about being
transparent today.
Yes, you do need to know those elements in your business. And if you don't, you are actually setting yourself up to failure. But with that said, how many times have we ever had a 4-year training plan go to plan? Never. So what the business plan, the limitation of the business plan is if it isn't agile enough to evolve and to be open to iteration. And I think that's what really Zoe was going back to, is that she has observed, she's sensed, and she's responded, and she's iterated. And as she's continued to sense what's going on in the market, she's iterated and she's iterated and she's iterated. It's probably why she's where she is now. And a business plan should facilitate that iteration. if it doesn't, well, then you just need to write a better business plan. And the same concept that Corey kind of mentioned when he said, oh, I wouldn't suggest a business partner. If I got a bad haircut, I don't stop getting my haircut. I find a new hairdresser. So I think what we need to do is probably let's be less dogmatic and black and white, and think, well, hang on, what's the relevant context? Now we know Corey's context as to why he had that feeling, and probably if he probably were to amend his statement, he'd say, actually, I choose a better business partner, or choose a business partner that complemented my skill set, like David mentioned. And I think that's probably some important takeaways after just kind of listening and being a fly on the wall for the last 10 minutes.
This is exactly why I also want to switch up the order, so we can see what everyone thinks in different order to provide feedback around each other too.
Yeah, I love it.
And so I have mentioned a little bit of about what I've gone through as well, but a couple of years ago, I had a business idea. I didn't end up moving forward with it because I didn't want to invest my money when I still have debt. But when I spoke to this company, I kind of expected to have a business plan, and then they said, we just need 9 pages. So they had 9 pages, and 3 of them were about finances. The other couple involved your vision, where you want to take it, and pretty much an idea of where to go from there before any kind of dealings. And he said he doesn't, and so they manage a digital company. He said they don't run off a business plan, but they do, similar to what Carl said. They are able to be agile, and they have an idea, and then they just have their plans on the side of where they're going to go with different sections. So the initial plan they have is very small, and then they have their separate sections and define them from there. So and that's where they become agile. And so it's really interesting to see how different businesses operate under different plans and what they consider a plan. But there are a few things we've mentioned quite a lot in regards to mistakes. So we're going to start back at Matt again, but although you've only owned the business for a year, you've obviously been within the business for a little while. What would be one of your biggest mistakes as a business owner, and or what do you see is the biggest mistake business owners make from your perspective? So it's a little bit of being judgmental towards what you have seen, but also mistakes you've made as well.
From the perspective that you want to be talking about with myself, which is the facility, we haven't made too many yet, fortunately. But as I said, like, I was way too planned. Like, my plan was, I had a year of planning before I taken over. And so, like, I knew exactly what was happening and how I was going to do it. And I knew my community well, and I knew my staff, and I knew the people that I was going to employ. So from that perspective, I don't feel like I have too much to contribute. I could probably contribute a bit more from the coaching aspect if you wanted to hear that. From the facilities perspective, I don't have much. Where I could probably contribute is observing other people that have tried creating similar facilities to me. From that perspective, I really feel like, I don't know how everyone else here feels in the panel, but I feel like if someone is going to open a gym or a small strength training facility, I feel like you're a little bit fucking nuts, to be honest, because it's a lot of hard work. You're probably going to lose a lot of money, and you're probably going to make a lot less money than what you were before. Because I can tell you right now, I probably make about 30 to 40% less money than I did when I was coaching, because I've got so much more time invested into my facility. What I see and what has happened, especially in the Brisbane, Queensland region, is a lot of people want, as we've said, their piece of the pie to having their own gym. I don't think people recognize how much time that is going to cost them, how much money that is going to cost them. And from there, I keep seeing people fail and fail and fail. And so we can have all these plans, and they're good and all. Do people even recognize what it actually takes to be successful, how long it's going to take to be successful, and how are they going to achieve it? Because, as I said, I'm probably a little bit different in the Brisbane, Queensland region than we are in different states, but I don't personally know many gyms or facilities from a small perspective. Let's say you've got less than 200 members that are profiting or making more than $50,000 a year. I had a recent meeting with my financial advisor and accounting team, and their goal was, if you make $50,000 a year, because they work with lots of facilities, you're doing really well in this game. So from mistakes, I think starting a gym is probably a silly mistake, and just not understanding what it's going to cost, what it's going to take. You have the passion for it. It's very different owning a facility than owning a coaching team. I can just talk about first perspective. As I said, I'm making 3 times more money than I'm myself coaching than my facility is, and my facility pulls in a lot of income. So,
nice. It's a good perspective.
That's not what we run a business for.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's what I think. You need to be a different type of crazy. I've wanted to own my own gym for 10, 15 years. Like the day I graduated high school, I was looking for different gyms around the place. I was like, fuck, there was nothing that met my craving. There was nothing like hardcore. There was nothing badass. There was nothing with the equipment that I wanted. So I've always envisioned having my own facility. It's been on my long-term goal plan to do. Like my goal was, by the time I was 35, I was going to have my own gym. I was 28 when I opened this facility, or I had this facility. So I was a little bit earlier than I planned, but you need to be super passionate and super crazy.
I totally agree with you. Like the question we should ask, so what kind of fucking madman do you have to be to run the gym? You have to be next level stupid.
Yeah.
Because especially unless you've got a ton of capital behind you, like daddy rich kind of money, which unfortunately I didn't have. We'll talk about facilities and why small scale facilities don't make money. It's because we're fucking small. We're like a milk shop corner store in the gym world. Like it's almost always built for failure. It's always built for struggle.
So I think you need to be super
these huge overheads,
passionate, super
exactly.
Crazy, yeah. To open a gym, and stupid, but you can't just be stupid.
Well, indeed.
To interject, you've got 5% chance to make it to 10 years. That's your chance. So you have 5% chance to make it at 10 years. That's
the problem now is too, everyone's trying to do it. And so your competitive market is huge. Whereas we've been around for 8 years. So we've already got a pre-existing, you know what I mean? We were the first powerlifting gym in Brisbane, really. There wasn't many other powerlifting gyms around back then. And so all other powerlifting gyms are essentially a butterfly effect from what my facility is. There were old coaches that didn't want to be a coach here anymore, so they opened their own gym. And then their members or coaches open their own gym. So if I was to open my own gym right now, it would be really hard. And the way I initially planned on opening my own facility was I'd probably have to be dating someone. Like my partner would have to be a super successful coach. I'd have to be a super successful coach. And I'd probably have to think I'd have at least 50 members that would start up with me straight away. Like if you don't have that background, which I have seen other coaches haven't, like other coaches have left our facility, for example, open their own gyms and they haven't taken 50 people with them, that there's a problem. You're not making money. How are you going to make that money? And it's just, I see it happening everywhere. I think the mistake would be opening a gym. Don't do it.
Yeah. just to finish that point though, because I said that's not the reason we do it for. What we do it for is because it gives a sense of fulfillment. And that's what we do it for. Because this is the only thing that we could wake up to and invest 16 hours of our day doing day in, day out. We could do nothing else at that kind of level. And I think we're also very privileged to be able to do that. We've found our sense and our calling. And in reality, there is no deadline. There is no end to business. Business just continues to operate in perpetuity. And that's the goal. And so there are very little rules. And certainly, whilst one of them has to be, you need to be profitable enough to keep things going. You only theoretically need to be only slightly profitable enough to keep things going. You have a incredible sense of fulfillment in your life, and it does everything you need for your family. And I think that there is probably an element that we should pay attention to, because the idea of this perpetual growth, just grow, scale, grow, is the answer if if it means that you're trading out your fulfillment. And I think I'm sure I would speak for everyone. We get incredible fulfillment for doing what we do, and that's I think important. That becomes a metric, because of in gym ownership, in running a clinic, it's not a metric that anyone talks about, and it's a metric that's a huge driving force. Because look, like, just ask any of our vision statements on our website. Not one of them says anything about I want to make a lot of money. Not one vision statement ever across the board. Even Apple doesn't say I want to make a lot of money. Their vision statement. It's about a purpose and about a cause and about a sense of fulfillment they can extract from running it. So I think that's important to take away.
I think in general, sorry to interject, I think in general, and one of the biggest things you hear over and over is if you get in it for the money, you generally don't last longer than a year.
I'll just add my last 2 cents on it. And I think it is, how do you define success? And what is everyone on here defining success by? Because if you're defining a business success by profiting large amounts of money, the gym game's probably not going to be your thing. But if you're defining success by personal fulfillment and achieving your dream and achieving your passion, well then, yeah, that could totally be the avenue. And as long as you're profiting or just breaking even and you're building an income from another stream, this might be the thing for your listeners. But if the listeners are like, oh, I really want to open up a gym and I want to make lots of money, I want to make $100,000, $200,000 profit per year, well, you probably got $200,000 of overhead, so you need to make $400,000 a year to make that type of money. So yeah, how do you define success might be how we discuss that.
Well, a good answer to how to make a lot of money from the gym is buy an F45 franchise. Like, if that's what's important to you, fucking just buy an F45 franchise.
And sell your soul in the process.
Yeah, that'll make you a lot of money, and you won't be able to sleep at night because your life sucks. So it's all trade-offs at the end of the day. And like, to answer your question, it's, I think success should be to leave your life better than you found it, and leave the people around you better than you found it. And if I can have a nest egg for my family and for my wife, and create an opportunity where she doesn't feel like she has to work, and Huey can go to a good school and he can have opportunities to play sport, well then that's all that I care about. I'd much rather stay small, or small-esque, and maintain a clear sense of purpose and fight a just cause than make it about growth and profit and everything in perpetuity.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll obviously keep on moving on. So I didn't want to cut that off because I think it was going good places. But we'll move
Just
on
got to let it flow, Kurt. Just let us flow. We're all in the ring, mate.
We got 5 people, 6 people in the ring. That's going to be dangerous.
We're a rumble.
Corey,
I
I feel you have a lot to say, so as well.
could talk for hours. Yeah, look, I think going back to Matt's point about small, I had like 40 one-on-one clients a week. So I was doing about 40 hours a week of training with one-on-ones, which allowed us to transition into Athletic Institute to what it is now. I went from 90 to 100K a year to 36 in my first year at AI. So I went to very wealthy to well below minimum wage in that first year. And like Carl said, we do this because we love helping athletes. We want to see them excel in what they do. And you're 100% right. If we did this to make a crap load of money, you're definitely in the wrong industry. 5 years on, I could pay myself a very decent wage. If I was in the AFL right now, and obviously Lockie's at Athletes Authority, so he would have been on a good wicket at an AFL club. I saw that sort of pathway, and having mentors in the AFL industry and other industries as well, and I think Lockie would, if he was here, would testament to this. It's a very volatile industry. So my business is my safety net. I put everything into it, putting the long hours and and by the way, I know down to the last dollar what my facility costs to run. So in terms of having a business plan and model, I know those numbers. I didn't know those numbers day one. You learn pretty quickly, but now you know those monetary value figures of what it costs for your overheads, and 20 to 25K a month is just what it costs to run a facility over here in Perth. That's my running cost. I couldn't give a shit about the transparency. So we need to make sure we're up to that figure and obviously above it. It's taken me 5 years to get to a point where I can pay myself a salary, my staff get paid a reasonable rate, and then still profit at the end of there. But that's been 5 years of just absolute in the trenches, to the point where I left my old business to start the new one so that I could actually have some holiday time and actually take a holiday and get paid for it. Because I thought working 9 to 5 and getting 4 weeks holiday pay a year sounds like the greatest thing in the world. And that was the reason why the company started, was I wanted to step away from, just grinding the 5:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., coming back at 3 to 8. I'm like, this has just got knobs in it after a while. I just burnt out. So I wanted staff who could help run the facility and run our philosophy. And then I could, take a step away and actually have a holiday and get paid for it. That didn't happen for the first 3 years. And then at year 3, it finally happened. And I went my first paid holiday, and it was fantastic. And that's why we do this. I think we need to have a balance. But I'm at a point now, if I can compete in Ironman and run a facility, I think I've got a pretty good balance in what we do. And the biggest thing for me as a business owner, because it's your baby at the end of the day, is trusting others to run it when you're not there. Because that is, having those people around you, that support network is so vital. And if you met me 5 years ago, I was like, fuck everyone, I'm doing this by myself. There's no one else can come in and help me out with this. This is my vision and my passion, and no one's going to come in and try and run it for me. I learned very quickly that doesn't work. So you need to have a good support network. And going from 90K to 100K a year to 36 is pretty demoralizing, and it does not help you in any way, shape or form in terms of, buying the cars and all sorts of stuff. But what it will teach you is resilience and how much you want this, which is why after 2.5 years, there was only one business partner left. There's a certain amount of sacrifice that needs to be made. And it's just a cliche speech really that every other business owner knows. But in terms of stats, I do a lot of reading, and by year 5, 20% of businesses will make it. So if you're at the 5-year mark, you're already in the top 20%. Okay. So you're doing well if you've made it to that far. And then from then on, it's that 10-year mark, like I said, I'm all about numbers. I'm all about stats, David. So I do know all those particular figures. So for the 10-year mark for me is that moment of, okay, we've created a legacy. We've created a brand that I am proud of. I don't want it to be a multiple facility gym that like franchises out. I think that is it for me at this point in time, because I want to have a brand that I can go away and go, I'm proud of everything we've built, and this is something that people should want to come and train, and this is the place to be. So
awesome. David, some learning mistakes or mistakes you see others make in your industry or area?
It's taken a long time for me to let go of every little task. As a big part of what the other guys said is be able to not know that you've developed the right people in-house, to have trust, to take that holiday, to leave all those tasks alone. But that's also part of a personality trait, to not want to let things go. So that's one of my things that I need to get better at, is to letting things go, because that's when you do get yourself that little bit more free time. One of the other key lessons that I learnt is, and why I thought the personnel planning is really important, is never create a role to hire it to fit a person. Always hire the person to fit the role that you've already created. So it can be pretty short and sharp. I think you make sure that be able to let things go and don't take everything personally, because it's not a personal slight on you. It's things that do happen in business. Be able to let things go and trust that you've developed the right people around you, and make sure you hire the people to fit the role as opposed to create roles to fit a person.
Nice. I like it. Zoe.
This is a really hard one. I feel like of all the mistakes that I've made, I've not considered any of the mistakes because it's taught me something. And that sounds fluffy, but I just feel like a mistake to me would be something that completely fucks you over and then you don't have a gym anymore. Like that to me would be a mistake. Anything else is just a learning curve or an experience. I don't think anyone could ever, having not gone from never running a business before to running a business, I don't think you could ever not make mistakes. I think mistakes are going to be part of it. But the biggest, I wouldn't consider it a mistake, but the biggest thing I struggle with is the same as David and Corey, is like letting go. And then the managing staff, like that. I'm a people pleaser by nature, and it actually really doesn't go well when you're trying to manage staff, when you're trying to get them to respect you and get them to do things you want them to do. I'm very altruistic as well, where we've fucked up a lot in the past with employees by starting them off with a lot of benefits, a lot of flexibility. They can work from home, they can work from where they want, they can work from when they want, as long as they get the job done. Like, we didn't give boundaries, we didn't give like really clear expectations. We were basically like, this is your role, run with it. And then when it wasn't done how we wanted to, it's like, well, fuck, that's our fault for not communicating that. Because I found the minute you give employees freedom, or you give them a platform or anything, it's almost near impossible to bring them back from that. So I would be more inclined to do it the opposite. I would start with really tight reins and then loosen them as they prove fit, as opposed to doing what we've done, is just being like, here's all this freedom. Because then the minute you're like, oh no, I don't like the way you're doing that, do it this way instead, there's so much pushback. In terms of mistakes other people are making, I have no idea. I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue. I don't really kind of keep my eye on other people, to be honest, or what they do. And I feel like what we see is a facade anyway. Like, we barely see the truth of anyone's business or what's actually going on. So you could see someone that we think is wildly successful and they're swimming in debt in their bankruptcy. You know, they could have debtors walk in the door the next week for all we know. Or you could have someone that's flying under the radar that's making way more than you and producing far better results than you, and you just don't know because they're not out there promoting themselves like they should. So my mistakes come down to, with the whole employees just giving, and then, you know, maybe we should do that the other way around, let them earn it, then give it, as opposed to give and expect them to respond to that. But otherwise, yeah, that's all I can think of, really.
Oh,
If
good.
you've got
It's interesting to see. Sorry.
If you've got resilience and a hard work ethic, like, mistakes are welcome, because you want to know what you're doing wrong just as well as you want to know what you're doing right.
And this is something, before I move on to Carl, is something I kind of wanted to bring up is that mistakes are part of it. Like, as much as we make mistakes and may think they're mistakes, we do learn from it. It's exactly the same as how stress works. So in regards to everything kind of evolving from there. So and the other thing is, it wasn't a trick question per se, but it's really good to see no one really pointed out any mistakes they see anyone else make, because successful businesses focus on themselves. They don't generally focus on what others are doing. They will learn from other mistakes if they've, I guess, seen or been in other businesses, but successful businesses don't tend to focus on other people. And as soon as they do, that's where they seem to have a downfall, in my opinion, from working in different businesses as well. So it's a really good point that you did make, Zoe. Last one, Carl, on this point. So we'll keep this one short.
I like what Zoe said about she doesn't really make mistakes. I think it was Phil Jackson, the golfer, who said, I've never missed a birdie in my life. And the reporter at the time said, no, you missed one like 2 hours ago. He's like, no, I didn't. And that kind of idea that he would just remove anything that would be perceived as something that's negative and just let it go straight away is something that I've been practicing recently, and probably really echo the majority of the guys in saying that you either do something really well or you learn. And I think that's a really good way to kind of think of that. But to try and add some value, I guess, to this point, I have at times failed to take full and extreme responsibility for every single element of my business, from employees that don't operate in the way that I would expect them to, from the results of the business not being the way I'd want them to, from the culture being not what I want it to be. And I'm fully responsible and always will be fully responsible for all of it. And I've failed to do that in the past. And that's definitely a learning lesson. I have gone through many iterations, and I have ran the gym with all the influencers in it at all at one time. And, and I thought that was a great idea until they've all got their clothes off, taking photos and completely damaging the brand reputation of what's meant to be a high performance training facility. And, I've made many mistakes, but the point is I've learned from them. So I think taking full responsibility for everything and creating solutions is good. The second thing is we're all coaches, probably. Most gym owners are not business people. They are coaches first and business people by default. And it blows my mind how few think they should not hold themselves to the same standard of getting a coach. Blows my fucking mind. Absolutely blows my mind that we would go years like banging our head against a wall, and I've made that mistake before too, of thinking I somehow could figure this out by myself when I was not an expert in business. So I have invested significant amount of money into getting some pretty incredible mentors up until, I've worked with guys like Sam Mubbins and spent a lot of money with those guys in digital marketing, like talking like $5,000 a month, more than that sometimes.
And that is a perfect segue to my actual next question,
Okay.
which is, do you have a mentor? Have you had a mentor? But on top of that as well, I kind of want to keep on the same topic a little bit. So rather than just mistakes, what is, I guess, something you, some advice you can give to someone wanting to go private? So I kind of want to cover both of those a little bit. So we just led on from mistakes we make, but what is some advice you'd give to someone going private? And that kind of links in a little bit with also, do you have or have had a business mentor? And I'm actually going to start with David on this one because he has to shoot off in a second. So I'll let him start with that. So doubling up on a question.
Sorry guys. So yeah, rush through a few of them if you have any questions, Kirk. I do have to run in a couple minutes. So yes, I do have a business mentor and I try to speak to them every month. Someone who's potentially outside of the industry is always a good idea because then they can critically appraise you from different ideas, from a different angle. With regards to advice for what I would give someone starting out, very rarely now are you going to have that opportunity to be the first one in the business. So do your market research, do your SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Have some sort of idea, at least a model of what you're wanting to do. I think most importantly, have an exit strategy because you do have to plan to fail. And if you don't, that's where you can end up in a lot of trouble on the other side of it. So make sure you do have an exit strategy. 3 things that I think every business owner should know. As I said, hire the right person for the role. Psychometric evaluation is a really powerful thing when you're finding employees because everyone's got an exercise science degree now. So it's important to find the right people for the roles. I'd say, yes, I discussed earlier, know your weaknesses, be honest about that and find people, partners, employees that can help fill those gaps. And ultimately to get through all of it, you've got to be doing it for the right reasons. You have to have that passion that everyone has said across the board. If you're not 100% driven, those long days, they will get to you pretty quickly, and then you'll become disillusioned with everything you're trying to do. So before you go spending any money, any capital and investing in any business, you've really got to spend that detailed time to go, is this what you want? Are you doing it for the right reasons? Is it a passion project, or is it just a hobby that you think would be nice to have?
Yeah, I think there's some great points. I think even before we move on in that question, we can see common themes coming up in this whole discussion regarding perseverance and actually having drive, but also being accountable for every action we take as well. So, and that includes obviously having a mentor rather than just thinking you can do everything on your own. And generally, we tend to all make that mistake at times. So, but I won't keep on harping on about that. We'll move on. Mixing up the order.
Sorry, I do have to run. Apologies, guys. It's lovely to meet you all, and hopefully you can get a chance to do this again. And if anyone has any follow-up questions as well, for both the listeners and anyone here on the panel as well, no doubt Kurt can share our details, and I'll be having a few questions for you guys too. So these things are always good for me to learn from too.
Well, good. Thanks for joining us,
Thanks for
David.
everyone, guys. I really appreciate
Cheers,
it.
David.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Cheers, guys.
David.
We will keep moving on though. Mixing up the order, jumping to Zoe this time.
Yeah, so yes, I have a business mentor at the moment, but I kind of use it a little differently than I guess most other people would. So over the 5 years, I would say I've had more advisors than I have mentors. So I have a really good accountant, as well as a really good financial advisor, because don't go to your accountant. Like if you want to look at investing and stuff, they're a little bit too safe. And then I have we outsource our marketing to a degree. We outsource our marketing and our branding and all that sort of stuff. So I always kind of go to them for stuff like that. I have a really good friend who's got again, like David, he's outside of the business, so I go to him for advice. But recently, at the start of the year, I did hire a business mentor, more so though for structure and accountability. One thing, being your own boss, people seem to think that it gives you all this freedom. They're like, oh, I want to be my own boss, I want to be able to do what I want. It's like, okay, cool. It doesn't give you freedom, but it does give you flexibility, and the flexibility is a real detriment if you don't know how to manage it properly. So I struggled for the first few years of having that flexibility, because it's like, oh, I can do what I want today. How am I going to structure it? It's completely up to me. Oh, well, I'm going to walk the dogs for a little bit. Oh shit, I need to empty the dishwasher. I call the vet. I can come in whenever. And before I know it, I've got all these appointments scattered around and no solid blocks for work. So I needed something that really set me in a good routine and a good structure. And that's why I hired a business mentor. And it's been fantastic. Even just implementing like that morning routine, making sure I structure my day, and just even the simple things like how to write a to-do list. Like I would always write projects on my to-do list, like, oh, create website. Like it's not a fucking task, that's a project. So how to break it down into tasks, all that sort of stuff has been what's been really beneficial to me. Advice for someone coming in, man, I don't even know. Just like Corey said, you don't know what, like you don't know until you've done it. I guess it's like parenthood. Like I'm not a parent, but I assume it's the same. Like you can go in with all these ideas of what it's going to be like, thinking that you know, and then you get into it and you're like, this is like fucked. Like this is nothing like I thought it was going to be, or this is really overwhelming, or there's so much more things that I didn't even consider. And I guess my biggest advice with that though is that you better be a really good troubleshooter. You really need to be that kind of person where if something isn't going to plan, you don't just collapse and think, like have a meltdown. You're like, okay, how can I fix this? What can I do? Where do I go? Who do I go to help me with this? Or where do I find the information I need? Because at the end of the day, when you start your business, you are every single role. Like you really are. Your IT, your marketing, your accounting, your finance, like you're everything. So you really need to be able to learn quick and just troubleshoot really well and think, where do I need to go to learn this? What do I need to do? Instead of just having a meltdown, like, fuck, it's not working. It's not going to plan. I don't know what to do. So you just need to really be good at that, I think, just and know that you got to do that.
Yeah, absolutely great points. This is the first year since I started coaching, I've used a calendar. I've gone 13 years in coaching with everything in here. I've never created a to-do list, never created a calendar. I don't know how I survived. I think because even when in business, I had a business partner that structured things a little bit better for me. But that's one thing I've learned this year, Zoe, is
dangerous.
Actually creating tasks and not projects.
Yeah, is a really good, I heard not that long ago, like the businesses, like the owner's strength is going to be your company's bottleneck. And I found that to be so true. Like Luke's strength and my strength is where things bottleneck, because we have trouble letting someone else do our strengths or allocating or, anything like that. So that's another thing is like like David said, know your weaknesses, know your strengths, and don't let them bottleneck, and hire people who are your weaknesses, like what their strengths are.
Absolutely. I like to add a little, sorry, what was that?
And use a calendar.
Use the calendar. I do like to add little things, and then that's the same in my first year of business when Zoe said, you are everything. I actually read the whole ATO tax manual, so I would save on a business accountant or business tax return. So I read the whole
Mine's
ATO
better
tax manual to
somewhere
do it
else.
myself.
Nah,
Yeah,
like,
so, yeah,
and
exactly.
shit like that. Like, and that's another thing, is figuring out where your time is best spent. Like, if you start a business and it's gonna take you like a week to read through that manual and make sense of it. Nah, fuck, like, just find some money and outsource that if you can. Because you're going to be able to make so much more, or be far more valuable doing what you're good at doing to bring some money in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're the mistakes you make along the way sometimes.
Right, yeah,
So,
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Alrighty, next one up, Matt.
Yeah, cool. So in terms of mentors, I don't have a personal business mentor at this current time. Something I wouldn't mind actually doing or having. I do collaborate with a lot of people. Like, I collaborate with people from out of state, interstate, and I collaborate with people overseas. So I am currently just having general conversations, or if I have a question, I will talk to someone about it. I don't have someone that is currently a mentor to me, and we're talking specifics of business. So during this conversation, I'm like, yeah, it would probably be great to have that. My limitation with myself owning this company is I'm the only person that is running this company. I don't have a partner. And I do feel like that's my limitation, because my limitation is my time. I cap my clients at 40. So I look after 40 clients. I look after this gym, and I run and organize powerlifting competitions and a few other things. So I'm doing so much work that my limitation is the time. And so talking about that, my question in terms of advice, my question to you, Kurt, is the general audience people looking at getting their own private facilities, or is the general audience also just people becoming private businesses such as coaches?
Well, I think we probably have a few different people in the audience, so I don't want to answer on behalf of them, but the intention is talking to people that may want to run a facility and own a facility in future.
Yeah, okay. So if we're talking facilities, it's a tricky one, because like we've discussed, it's like you need to be crazy and passionate and understand that you're not going to make that much money. Advice to someone that's going to open a facility, I think the best piece of advice would be talk to other people who own facilities. So for myself, going and purchasing this, I can tell you right now, because I know about 10 other people personally, quite close, whether I was coaching them or mentoring them from other aspects before I even bought this place. Every single person said, don't do it. And I don't think it's until you actually, like, even though like I love this and this is my passion, I still think, looking out of this, I think you'd be bloody crazy if you did this. Like, it's just ridiculous, the amount of work and time and money that goes into something like this. My one piece of advice would be genuinely talk to people, like reach out, talk to people that own a facility already, and just have good conversations with them. What does it take? What are you actually doing in the background? Like, I don't think people understand that I might spend 20 hours a week just doing admin. You know, like, I don't think anyone thinks about that. Do you know how boring that is?
They have no idea. No idea.
Coaching.
That's Zoe's role, isn't it, Zoe?
Yeah, no, yeah, but and the annoying thing is, like, do you get it? Like, if you spend a day or 2 days doing your admin work and someone's like, oh, what have you been doing? You're like,
no one understands or appreciates.
A lot, but you can't sit there and like, you're just like, I've just been so busy doing all the shit that has to get done. And it's like, it has to be done, but it doesn't feel productive. Like, that's the hard stuff.
No one can grasp it. No one can grasp it.
Ask you though, Matt, like, do you see a point where you're going to stop training and just run the business, or are you planning to do both for a while? Because that's a big gig.
Opposite. So if you want to talk about like my initial and actual plans, I think if someone wants to make money in this industry, you need real estate. I think that's probably all businesses. And so for myself, our outgoings are $100,000 a year in rent. Yeah. So if I could somehow purchase this building, build this to a place where it's profiting X amount to get a loan, I'm now paying off a loan rather than paying rent. And so long term, I'm building asset and equity. That's where I think you can make money. And what I would do from there is hire people to start looking after the admin and doing all the roles that I don't want to, and then start coaching again. Because that's honestly, like, I make $100 now coaching. I'd probably make 0.3 cents an hour owning a gym. You know?
Can we troubleshoot this for a sec, Matt?
Sure.
When you say 20 hours of admin, run me through some of the tasks. I'm going to be able to connect with you because I've done it myself. What exactly?
Yeah,
Time freezes.
You're just replying. So I think I probably take on a few more roles than what other gym owners. We all have different roles, but let's say I have competitions. I run a competition every 1 to 2 months. And so I'll have 60 to 80, let's say I have 60 competitors compete.
Yeah.
Probably have about 100 inquiries on that. You got to fix there. You got to fix problems. You got to listen to inquiries. Hey, I want to join your gym. Hey, I want to cancel my membership. Hey, I want to get a coach. What do I do? Like the most basic things that will take up time. Like it's just and then things.
So Matt, I've got a few things that you might want to explore that might help. Not going to guarantee it will. For the low skill, non-specific tasks like time freezes and stuff like that, you can get some poor person in the Philippines and who you're actually supporting. You're actually supporting them because when you pay them $5 an hour, it's better than their 50 cents, who will be able to automate tasks for you. So that you could do something along there if you wanted to. As I said, it may not be the solution. From the powerlifting side, I know what's involved running comps because I've done a few, and they're fucking full on. You know what you could do from people wanting to sign up and ask questions about what do I need to bring and how long before weigh-ins and all that jazz. You would easily set up a powerlifting internship. I'm sure there are a million powerlifters who would want to learn from you, and that could be one of their roles. Is that you teach them, you upskill them, and then that's their role to look after comps. And you turn up on the day, you host the fucking shit out of this thing, and you do what you do best, and obviously is empowering people and getting it done. So there are solutions to that. You don't, even though you're the only guy in your business, you don't have to be the only solution.
Yeah, 100%. And as I said, the long-term plan is we are outsourcing this, and that is literally the plan.
You can do it without spending money, or at least a lot of money, earlier than later, and that's probably the point I'm trying to bring home. There are some creative ways to try and make that happen.
Cool.
Nice. We'll jump on a Corey before going to Carl again.
Yeah, cool. All right, so advice. Well, first of all, mentors. Yes, I've got a couple who I obviously speak to. Obviously, gym owners. I think spending $500 on an hour consult with someone who actually has had 20 years in the game is definitely worth the investment, because that could save you a lot of money, I guess, down the track. Advice. Look, cash is king. Trying to have capital is obviously important. We can't all have a massive amount of money, so trying to limit your debts, especially early on, when the business is at a point where it can borrow because it has equity, it's got proven record, which is where we're at. I would definitely try and hold off any big debts, especially early on. What I've learned in business, it's all about people. It is all about your staff. It's all about the people you work with. Getting that team is, to me, probably is the biggest priority, is getting people with a like-mindedness and who will go above and beyond the call of duty for your facility and for your staff, and for your members. That is the number one thing for me. Clients don't really care. Some clients don't care about the numbers and how you program and your periodization plans and yada yada yada. Most of them want to know: do you care about them? Are you asking how they're going? Do you actually want to help them? And if they can pick up on that, then you'll go okay. Matt, with your issue, obviously, like internships, like we've been running internships here since year one, and that's actually one of the good things my ex-business partner put in place. And like the American internships we've got with Tina Broad, they come over for 8 weeks. Day one, we sit together and we have a chat. We give them a project. The last couple that came over, one was to get our facility paperless. So everything, iPads, all consults. I want to try and stop spending money, like $500 to refill my printer. So for us, it was might as well buy an iPad for $500. And then over the year, she made us paperless essentially. So internships are a massive way where you can get people on board and you just give them tasks. And the hardest part is trusting them, but obviously guide them along the way. Definitely have a philosophy, an overall model. Learn to delegate. Definitely learn to delegate to the right people. Systems are obviously important. Early on, we had no systems. Like it was just, we did everything and anything. Richard Branson once said, if you don't know how to do the job, just say yes and learn it later. I did that very early on. I was just saying yes to everything, and now we're at a point where I don't need to I can pick and choose what I want to do, and read the market. Reading the market is so important. 2017, the market started to turn very, very badly in terms of excess cash flow. Gyms were losing revenue. We were losing people. So this wasn't in our business plan, but I just went straight to government cash. Where is government cash? Where is funding always going to be? That is in schools. It is in training police force. That is where guaranteed money will always be. So for us, we made a pretty big shift. I guess we pivoted towards where government money would be. So, and now we train the Australian Federal Police Force. We work in 5-6 schools. So that's another model that I think people need to tap into as well. Is not always relying on your gen pipe who are going to spend, $60 to $150 a week on your gym. That'll be the base, but you need to have this hedgehog concept of diversifying what you're very good at doing, and that is just testing and training people. So just try and get into as many avenues as you can. Try and maximize the capacity within your facility, but that has a ceiling. So you can only have so many people in your facility at one time. So then you need to outsource all those things as well. So testing teams, training teams outside your facility is a very good way to double your revenue. If you have someone running a thing in your facility and someone running something outside your facility, that's when you start to see the profit. That's when you start to see the model start to change. And that's what we did in 2017 when over here, I'm not sure what it was like for you guys over there, but things definitely took a downturn. And then I'm sure no one planned for COVID. So yeah, we're just rolling with the punches and we're just in the ring doing the old rope-a-dope. So
yeah, and I think it's one of the things that comes down to having, like you said, 2 different sections of running outside of it, is letting your own control go to a certain point, isn't it? And trusting your people.
Correct.
Carl.
It's been so long. Can you ask me the question again?
One, do you have a mentor? And the other one would be advice for people going private.
Yeah. Yeah, we have lots of mentors. I spend a fair bit of my money on staying up to date with the latest marketing strategies. I have sales mentors. I have marketing mentors. I don't necessarily have mentors for the customer experience role, because that's really Lockie's job, is to deliver on our promise. And certainly Lockie has mentors for that. And then I have my stepdad is
Lockie kind of just needs to speak, and he seems to gather attention. So,
well, when you're very good at what you do, and you know your stuff, that is generally what happens.
Yeah,
generally,
absolutely.
people pay attention. People who are very good and who can communicate their message well.
At the
So I'm very lucky to have him.
At the Ask a Level 3 course, there was a topic on. I won't cause any controversy, so I won't explain what the topic is. But I think it's before the question was even finished, Lockie just hammered it and just went on a rant for about 15 minutes, and everyone's like, "Okay, we know what you're thinking." So, but he gathers attention in a positive way.
As long as he's actually making a convincing argument. I spend a lot of time listening to rants with Lockie, and most of the time they're convincing. Some of the time we get a little bit off track. But yeah, he's an incredible guy, and I'm very lucky to have him. So yeah, from the mentorship side, yeah, great. The advice for those who want to go private. Look, there are 5 laws in business. There are no, and when I say laws, they think of them as like our governing principles, like progressive overload. So think of it in this context. Many ways to get progressive overload, but it's an overarching principle. And these are the 5. You need to have a clear value proposition that communicates your value to your audience. So your audience is your market, and then you need to be clear on what that message is. And when I say a message, I mean a promise. If you don't have a promise for your market, you are fucked. The amount of gyms that I see, and I go onto their main product, their main service, and as opposed to actually having what their promise is, it's just telling me what the service name is. For example, athlete development program, I go onto their flagship program, it says, join the athlete development program, click here. If you're not clear on your promise to your market, which is your messaging, you're fucked. So that is the first rule. You need to know your value and know how to communicate that value, which ties in the second point, which is marketing. Do you know the media, and do you know where your audience is, your market is, and do you know how to communicate to them? Can you do that? And depending on who you work with, will also determine what media you use, for example. So, let's take Matt, for example. A very effective strategy would be to leverage the fact he runs powerlifting comps every 2 months. That he's going to have all the people who are interested in strength training and powerlifting all in one place, all at the same time, every second month. Hopefully, we've got a great offer for those people when they're there, because that is a great opportunity to take advantage of the fact that they're all in the same place. And obviously, if your audience is on Facebook, if your audience is in LinkedIn, if your audience is wherever it is digitally, which most audiences are now, that you're everywhere that they are. The moment that they interact with you, and if you don't know how to use Facebook Pixel and you don't know how to leverage paid marketing, then you should learn how to leverage paid marketing. Everyone wonders how, wow, you guys seem to be really far ahead. It's because I'm doing things that most people aren't doing, which is pay for attention. I pay for attention, and that helps me massively. I get incredible ROI on that, and it means we can help more athletes, which is exactly what me and Lockie do it for. We're here to help athletes. We know our systems work, and if we can get in front of the athletes, we're doing them a service. So I am unashamedly going to market myself to those people and use paid marketing, because I would prefer them to work with us, and where we can deliver a powerful promise to them, than to work with anyone who's inferior to that. The third thing is, stop bitching about sales and stop being scared about being a salesman, because you are a fucking salesman. It's exactly what you are. You have to communicate that value. You have to convince people to take action, and you need to help them believe in themselves to transform their life. And that's what sales is. That's exactly what it is. So if you're one of those people, and I understand if you are, I don't like to be a salesperson, or I don't like to, push anything on them. I don't like to, come across salesy. Well, actually giving some other moron who's going to do a worse job than you a chance to take the attention away from that client, and they'll work with them instead. So stop being scared about sales. Third rule.
I think sorry to interject for a second. I think that's the biggest thing is, I speak to one of my mates who's been in the fitness industry since he was 18 and he's nearly 40 now. He says the exact same thing. Sales has a negative connotation to it, and just formulating an argument to someone, that is sales. Like having a discussion with someone, that
persuasion.
Is sales.
Exactly. It is persuasion. It's literally the art of persuasion. And you guys are coaches. All of the guys listening to this, you guys are coaches. You have to persuade your clients to take action, whether it's Pilates, physio, strength training, nutrition advice for Zoe, education. You have to persuade people. And that's all sales is that art of persuasion and getting them to take action.
Just find their why. Whatever their why is, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. That's the first thing you teach your staff is what is their why and how do you provide that service for them. That's it.
And the word salesman is just semantics. So continue on.
So that's law 3. Law 4, you better deliver on your promise with an exceptional customer experience. The amount of people who are happy to sign someone up on whatever their flagship program is, and then they just become part of the program is really disappointing, because you've got about 90 days to really capture people's attention and make them advocates for your brand. And they will sell for you like crazy if you do that well. It's as simple as the moment that they mention, hey, I've passed on your number to Tony, he's going to give you a call. And then Tony gives me a call and say, I want my son to join your gym too. I heard it from Sky. I'm sending 2 gold class tickets to Sky, because I want her to know that I appreciate her support and that I value that recommendation, that referral. Simple things, simple things that, you've got that 90 days, deliver on your promise. That's the first thing. So whatever your promise is, hopefully you can do it in 90 days. If you can't, then you better have some other targets within 90 days that you can deliver on, because that's about as much time as someone's going to kind of back you for without seeing a result. So you've got about that 90 days. That's law 4. That's your customer experience. Law 5 is manage your fucking finances, for fuck's sake. If you only have one bank account where all your money goes into and then all your money goes out of when you spend it, you are mismanaging your money, and that's in your control. You should know exactly what you should be allocating to equipment funds, exactly what you should be allocating to operating expenses, exactly what you should be allocating to other operational costs like staff. And you should have clarity on what you can spend at any point in time. And it's very simple. Instead of having to try and justify and figure out if you should buy this or do that, if there's money in the account and you want to spend it on that, go for it. If there's not money in that account, then you can't spend it. It's simple. It's very simple rules, and very few do it. Now, the chance I'm preaching to the choir here, you guys are the guys who probably do these things. But I'm sure there's a lot of people who may listen to this live or listen to the recording and are going to go, fuck, I'm not doing any of that. I'm like, well, then you're flying by the seat of your pants in business, because these laws won't go away. They govern you whether you like it or not.
Nice. Very succinct. But no, it's important to kind of add those different areas, and I think that's really important for people to acknowledge. Is those exact things that you said too.
Yeah. So with those 5 things, just for clarity, so you guys know what to do about that, I have a completely free course. It's called the Fitness MBA course. It runs you through those 5 elements. I don't care that I'm plugging, because I know I can help. So if you go to authoritytocoach.com or go to our athletesauthority.com website, you'll find the Fitness MBA link. It's completely free. It will take you through all those 5 steps and establish those 5 things in your business. I don't hold back. I give you the same Excel spreadsheet that I use week to week to manage my money. I give that to you. Every single thing I use is in there. That helps me, because to be honest, I know if I'm going to help every athlete in the world, I need you coaches to do some of the legwork for me. So I need you guys to win. So I want you to win in business. So use that resource. If you have no idea what it is said, if you know no idea where to start, that will be the best place to start. It's completely free. There is no gimmick. There is no catch. It's free.
Nice.
Can I back up on that customer experience thing and just say like how incredibly important that is? That's how we've grown to date. Over the 5 years, our growth has been 60% growth average every year, and we predominantly grow from word of mouth because we try and just over service the shit out of people, and people appreciate that. Like, I can't tell you how many people would rather go to someone with a subpar product but that gets exceptional service. Like, you see people stick with personal trainers that have been their clients for 3 or 4 years and haven't got any results, but they're happy to stay because they're getting service. They're getting, like, they feel like they're getting a value. And it's just finding those little value adds. I think that customer service is one of the most important things. Well, obviously you've got to have a good product and be good at what you do. Like, don't have really good service and a super shit product. Like, make sure you've got a good product. But customer service should definitely be a really big focus, because like Carl said, then they do the selling for you. It's like a no-brainer.
Exactly right. And I think this is something which tends to get missed a lot, because in the current age, we're actually big on consuming. And obviously, particularly in COVID, there's a lot of consuming because we can't take as much action. But I think one of those things in regards to customer experience is acting on that, and giving people a good customer experience is taking action and not just knowing what they should be getting.
What's the personal side to personal training, right? Like, fuck, it's not just training, it's personal training.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Treat like a person.
Now, so we don't, because we've already gone just over 2 hours, so we've been going for a while. So we'll try and wrap it up. I'll ask one more question. How do you continue to grow personally and also as a business? And that's a pretty broad question, but how do you grow just by yourself, but also how do you grow as a business? And we're going to start with Carl on this one.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I have a family. So that gives, I get to grow with my family. Personally, I have an incredible wife who is absolutely the rock and the queen of my life. So I'm very lucky to have her. And I have a son who's about 10 months old. So I have all the motivation in the world to grow personally with that little family and create something for them. And then in terms of professionally, I'm always speaking to people who are playing a bigger game than I am, much bigger game, who are working in internationally and have much bigger projects and are thinking much bigger picture than I am. I always want to surround myself by those people. Very lucky that I am in a position to always be surrounded by people who want to do crazy things. So that's kind of how I make sure I'm always in the right room professionally. But simple things like, get yourself a Kindle and read a fucking book not a book, but just read every night before bed. Like, just do stuff like that, because there is never going to be a limit to, like, I pick up like little golden nuggets from these books, advertising books of the 1980s, for example, like a golden nugget. And I'm like, oh, I know what to do. Boom, bang, bang. All of a sudden, it's a catalyst for action. And now in 2 months down the line, I've got, those 4 new athletes I've got in my program. I can all tie back to that strategy that I used that came from that book. And so, I would always be having a Kindle by your bed, not your phone specifically. Don't have your phone and read on the Kindle. I'd get a fucking Kindle, because you'll just read Instagram if you're on your phone. Do that and just soak that information as well, because the amount of golden nuggets I've gotten, I'm full of golden nuggets because of it. I never feel like I'm not without a strategy that I can try and apply. So that would be my advice for professional growth.
Nice. And to add to that, I think the one thing we kind of have to recognize is business hasn't actually changed too much in the last 50 years. It's just the evolution of how we conduct business.
Yeah. Business has never changed. Business since the very beginning has been about the transfer of value. It's always what it's always been. And communicating what you've got, whether it's a fucking sheep or a silver coin, it was all about, look at what I have and this is valuable and you want it. And I like your silver coin and I'll take your silver coin for my sheep. And it's always been that way. Business has never changed. So a book written in the 1960s or 2020 isn't going to be much different. And if anyone's claiming that they've got some fantastic novel way to run a business, they're talking shit, because there's absolutely nothing new.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly right. We'll move on to Matt for this one.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I'm along similar lines. Like, I believe I'm a big fan of collaborating with people. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love learning. I love becoming better. I hate the idea of, I literally hate the idea of every second of the day, my goal is to be better than what the previous second was. I hate not getting better. So I'm always collaborating with people. Like, I might even collaborate with some of you guys after this. Like, I just love learning. I love becoming a better person. I love becoming better at business. So from both avenues, that's pretty much the answer. And it's something I always do. So each week I have a different, so I've got a month schedule, and I might rotate through this, but I find people who I think are really interesting, or I could learn and get some valuable information off, and I'll have an hour consult with them. So each week I'm collaborating with someone different, and I've got a few different, I might call them mentors, you could almost call them friends, but people that I'm always learning off, whether that's sports performance, biology, nutrition, business, anything like that. But where I'm going to keep pushing forward is, I think both personally and professionally, it's just always keep collaborating and trying to become better.
Nice. I think that's a big important one as well, is that collaboration. So that's similar to how I kind of conduct and grow personally and professionally, is collaborating with people and talking to others. And I think that's one thing I really enjoy in growing, is actually just learning from others in that aspect.
There's no better way to collect information from other people's or other experts' personal experiences, because what you can get from a textbook or what you can read online is completely different to having a conversation with someone who's an expert in that field. Like, the information that they have and the anecdotal experience they've developed over time is just not something that's available. So I think you need to communicate with people to become possibly one of the best people in your field.
Well, Corey.
Yeah, look, similar to everyone else, I think you're a product of your environment. So just surround yourself with people who are better than you, who always have a growth mindset. Everyone here would know growth and fixed mindset. So you're looking at challenges as an opportunity to get better. And that's what we teach our athletes as well. So, and like Carl said, I've got 10 books on my nightstand. Always reading. You should be reading every night or reading most nights. Like you can have the weekend off, whatever, but Monday to Friday, you should be reading a book and try and read it outside of what you're good at. So I read a book about, pregnancy. You read a book about hormones. You read a book about, it doesn't matter what it is. Learn it, read it, have some basic understanding. I think in business, you need to be a very, very good generalist. You don't have to be an expert. Like you can be an expert in S&C because that's what we do and that's what we're highly educated in. But as a business owner, I think you need to be a very, very good generalist. You need to have your finger on the pulse of every single aspect of your business. So that is, I think that's key. And have your own personal outlet. I think, whether it's training, whether it's family, you need something that pulls you away from the business as well so that you just keep mentally fresh. Like I was in hospital after 3 years of this business. I was in hospital getting ECGs on my heart because I didn't know what was going on. And it was just because you're working ridiculous hours. Terrible. I had a terrible diet and I own a gym and I was barely training. How's the irony in that as a business owner who owns a training facility? So one thing I've learned, especially the last 3 years, is that you need to be your own product. You are a walking product of your business. So that is also something that you need to take on board. You need to practice what you preach, and your members need to see that to some degree. You don't need to be an elite athlete, but you need to have an understanding of what it's like to train. So, and just continue to get better. Like at no point in your business do you ever go, all right, cool, we're good. Let's chill back for a couple of years and we'll just keep rolling through. Like that doesn't happen. So.
Nice, good points. And Zoe?
I've just been writing so much stuff down, so I'll try and keep it short. Agree with the reading. Avid reader. Daily reading is my absolute non-negotiable.
Sorry to interrupt there for a second. Can you just tell everyone how your bookcase is organised?
Can I show you?
You can, yeah.
I'll show you. And I'll walk and talk. So absolute reading is my non-negotiable. I actually really got into like drug dealer books. Drug dealers and criminals. You can learn a lot business of them. But my bookcase is all color-coded. I don't know if you can see it. I have a very large bookcase. So I'm an avid reader. I've been a reader my whole life, and so that's definitely one. Personal growth, business actually grows me personally, if that makes any sense. But I've learned a lot about myself since starting a business. I learned a lot about my weaknesses. I learned a lot about how I handle stuff, how I manage stuff, how I internalize stuff. Stress management was a really big one. Simple works. I know that was spoken before, but like was mentioned earlier, if someone has this new fandangle thing, it's like fuck off with that, because these tried and true ways just do simple really well. One really big thing happened actually about a year ago. We moved house, and I was unpacking and I was going through some old shit, and I found some notes from when I was doing my Cert 3 and 4. And when I did my Cert 3 and 4, I did it in person. So I like went to school to do it. And one of the classes back then, I didn't believe, like I wasn't a goal setter. I didn't believe in goals. I had no goals. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And there was one session where we had to write down goals. Like we wanted to be in 5 years, we wanted to be in 10 years and all this stuff. I don't remember writing any of this stuff down, but I know that I would have just gone, fuck, I don't know. I want to drive this. I want to earn this. I want to travel here. I want to do that. I found that piece of paper. I don't even remember writing it. I am doing every single one of those things, right down to the car that I had written on that note like 8 years ago. I was doing it. So I'm really big on putting out there what you want to do, whether that's write it down, have a vision board. I have a vision board. Keep an open mind, learn off everybody. Never be so naive to think that you can't learn something off someone, and be really critical, like be a critical thinker and just absorb what you can. Some things you can only learn from experience. You can read 1,000,001 books on training, like you guys would know, but it's not until you get on the gym floor and you actually train people. Like there are so many aspects to being a coach and a business owner that you can only learn from actually being a coach and a business owner. Have some time off to sharpen your sword, as what was just mentioned. If you don't have time off, if you don't have a hobby, if you don't rest, your sword just gets blunt and blunt and blunter, and then it's just like the simplest tasks are just like walking through mud. Like it's just such a struggle. So you have to have that time off to sharpen your sword, so you don't have to swing as hard, and just make sure you're always in some form of upward momentum. Like, it doesn't have to be in everything, but as long as you feel like you're kind of moving ahead, like with this whole COVID thing, like, yeah, we bought the gym, 5 days later they closed the gyms. So we've spent the time really setting ourselves up so when we open, we can hit the ground running. Like, we're getting it painted, we're getting it just kind of like revamped, got the floors revarnished, and it feels good knowing that we're still moving ahead, even in times where it's like everything's at a standstill. So that's all I wrote down. I will mute myself now.
Also good points. So just before we finish up, do we have any questions either by the participants left, or do we have any questions to ask each other?
I've got so many questions. I'm probably just going to reach out to everyone individually. I will be here forever. We'll be here forever.
Yeah, this conversation could probably continue on to 9 o'clock tonight minimum.
Yeah, we can turn it into a 12-part series.
I guess in that case, one, are we all happy to share? Are you all happy for me to share email addresses to those that registered initially? Yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
And I plan to just upload this on the YouTube to flick a link to everyone. Is that all good?
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for those that have actually stuck around for the entire time. I actually plan to keep this at an hour and a half, and it's nearly 2.5 hours later. So I think we've covered quite a lot. We could cover plenty more, but I really enjoyed learning from everyone here, and hopefully people have got some good nuggets out of this. And clearly we've had a plug for Carl's Fitness MBA as well. So anything he's talked about, I'm sure it's in there too. But I'm sure we'll reach out to each other. So thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks, Kurt, for putting it together.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Putting it on. Thank you very much.
Cheers. See you, everybody.
Thanks, Kurt. See you, mate.